I'm sure that we can all think back to a time where things weren't so simple. And I'm also sure that we can think back to a time where we had instances of self-doubt and worry that, in hindsight, were never really needed. Many of us fall victim to the debilitating effects that failure can have on us, and it's preventing us from living out our fullest lives. Today, I'd like to inspire you to embrace your failures in order to do three things. By embracing your failure, you highlight the effects that it has on one's mental state. You also see how it produces solutions to problems that may have otherwise been unknown. And by embracing failure, you also inspire others to do the same. First, I'd like to talk about how embracing failure highlights the effects on one's mental state. I know from personal experience of the lingering effect that it can have once you do in fact fail. You see, once we have a situation, we tend to think about the what ifs instead of thinking about the what did happen in that same situation. Dr. Timothy Pischel, a Canadian psychologist and professor, actually conducted research and concluded that we have this irrational fear, and with that fear, we have also a growing level of procrastination as well as more self-doubt. Now that I have talked about the effects that it has on the mental state, I'd like to talk about how embracing failure produces solutions to problems. Growing up, as I'm pretty sure we all have heard, that prior planning will make for a great performance. However, I was never really taught how to deal with or cope with things when they don't exactly go my way. So when that performance is lackluster. It wasn't until I became older and became more mature is when I learned that I could combine both my accomplishments and failures in order to overcome adversities and finally push through to succeed. My brother kind of learned from my mistakes and failures. However, he wasn't completely devoid of his own. You see, his therapist, who was licensed in both counseling as well as social work, expressed to him multiple times that when we fail, we still have that irrational fear of failure. However, we use this in order to strive and to adapt and overcome as well. Rounding up my previous topics of both embracing failure to highlight the effects it has on one's mental state, as well as how embracing failure produces solutions to problems, I would like to talk about how embracing failure inspires others. Embracing failure inspires others because we as a society tend to look at others for inspiration and also admiration. So when we fail, it's no longer personal, it now affects the people around us as well. When looking at leaders such as Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, and even Oprah Winfrey, they have all had substantial, and I mean substantial, downfalls within their careers. However, they use these downfalls in order to build upon them in order to become as successful as they are in their respective career fields. As you can see, we have talked about how embracing failure, it can highlight how it affects the mental state, also how it produces solutions to problems, and finally, as how it can inspire others to do the same. By embracing failure, let us do as Oprah Winfrey said once in an interview, which was to let your wounds become your wisdom. So let us all embrace our failures in order to become as successful as we can.